where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruel Tea Podcast. This is Lillian, and with me finally is Willow.
Hi.
Hi. Well, that sounded really unenthusiastic.
Yeah, it was like finally Willow showed up.
Listen. Okay, where we live, there's been like dust from the Sahara Desert, dust storms. Mm-hmm. The weather can't decide what it's going to do. Air conditioner froze, so it's been thawing all day.
All the plants have been like fried by the sun.
Oh, they're crunchy.
Yeah.
The leaves are falling off the trees because there's no moisture.
Yeah.
And we spent like a week under like nearly 100-degree days. Mm-hmm. And I'm just beyond soup. Like my brain was soup.
Yeah.
But it is now evaporated.
It's like whenever you cook soup in a crock pot and then you forget about that crock pot for like a long time and then you find that crock pot and then you put it outside because it stinks and then you forget about it some more. That is the type of soup I am.
Oh dear.
Yeah, there's hair.
It's fuzzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is I'm all fucked up.
Yeah. Happy August time.
Also, I've gotten like, if you're listening to this and you were on my Facebook and you're not now, and you think that I blocked you, for the love of God, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
One more message. I didn't block well, I blocked people, but I didn't block you. I can guarantee it. My Facebook is banninated. I'll never get it back. Oh my God, please stop. If you want to talk to me that much, email me.
Or get on Discord.
Discord would be better. I can find you on Discord, especially if I owe you something. The only way I kept track of all that was with Messenger, and I have no access to it. Like I just downloaded like all my information from Facebook. They let me do that, but I have no chats or so I don't know shit. Anyway, moving on, because I just wanted to. I want to never talk about this Facebook shit again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So this month's theme is double lives.
Double lives.
And I fucking hate double lives, dude. Like, I don't like lying in general.
No.
Lying in general creeps me out, and it just seems very childish.
Lying is pussy-ass behavior.
It is.
Unless, let me say this, you have to do it to save your skin or somebody else's, and lie through your fucking teeth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Lie to the cops. Just lie.
That's something I never understood, like in movies when the guy has like the gun to somebody's head and is like, tell me the truth. And like, why don't they just say like,
I was petting puppies. I don't know what
or like a
about.
diversion, like use a diversion. Like, why can't you just say something right?
Start shitting your pants furiously.
Anything but leading them to where they don't need to go.
Yeah. So no, I'm an exception for that. But for the most part, I find all dishonesty very cowardly and cravenly behavior.
Just
like
creepy.
Grow up.
Yeah.
And say your truth, even if it's nasty. We just gotta be truthful.
Yeah. But like having a whole double life, like
I don't have the energy for the fucking one life I have.
Yeah.
That's what gets me.
Yeah.
I can like a day of just like working and making dinner. I'm so wrecked.
And I don't know, I give you guys props, like the writers out there that can make stories up and
all
like tell stories. Yeah. I cannot tell a story if I make it up. I cannot tell a story. Like when my kid was little, like he'd be like, "Oh, Mom, tell me a story," and I would have to tell him a fiction story, like something that actually happened. Like, and I don't really watch that many movies either. I'm sorry. I'm just realizing all of this.
Just now?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So it's Willow's episode. What are we covering today?
God damn it, Lillian.
I know.
So today we're going to be talking about Jack Unterweger, who was
I know this bitch.
Yeah. Speaking of writers, he was in his time a famous Austrian writer and journalist who lived a double life as both a celebrity author and a serial killer. So I know that I don't know if this is like technically a double life, because I think that all serial killers keep that quiet.
Not all.
Oh, that's true, I guess. Yeah.
We've had quite a few, like Ing and the other one, Leonard. Lake and Charles Ing. That was their lifestyle together.
Yeah, for sure. So
I think sometimes serial killers, I've even met people where I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
You've got bodies in your basement.
Yeah.
So I think some of them try, perhaps, but not all are successful. And this guy, I think, was particularly successful with his double life.
I think that the double life in this case, of course, we'll get into it, but I think that it really, I think that what makes it a double life is the fact that in his writer life, he is famous, he is fabulous, he's well dressed, he's charisma, he's, all of these great things.
Respected.
Yes, and highly intellectual, all of this. But in his criminal life, he's a completely different person.
Yeah, disaster.
Yeah, and definitely not,
And if you are recognizing it as something we covered before, no, but yes.
Yeah, you mentioned it.
When I covered the Cecil Hotel, I did mention it in that episode with Maris during our American Horror Story Month. Mm-hmm. But I did not go into depth at all. I meant I maybe said a paragraph about the guy, so I'm anxious to hear more.
Yeah. So originally, or during his time, he was known as the Poet of Death, the Vienna Ripper, Jack the Strangler. Johann Jack Unterweger was born August 16th, 1950, to a barmaid slash waitress from Vienna who was working in Italy. Now, I will say a lot of sources say that she is a sex worker. It is likely that, most barmaids and waitresses during the war also worked as sex workers. That was kind of the overall vibe, honestly. And, a lot of times, throughout history, sex workers were also barmaids. So, I don't know. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to say that most sources say that she was a sex worker. And he would go on to really hinge on this. Like, he really disliked sex work and sex workers in general, and kind of put most women in that demeaning category, as if sex work was this terrible thing that you could do and it made you a terrible person, and therefore you could do whatever you wanted to these people because they were just inherently bad.
It goes back to sex workers are often just dehumanized.
Absolutely.
So that people can feel okay about doing terrible things to them.
Exactly. And that's exactly how Jack was.
Yuck. Yeah, this guy sucks.
He had no regard for women, especially. And he tends to stem this all back to his mother. Because his mother ended up meeting his father, an American soldier who was stationed there during World War II. And pretty much right after they met, he left, leaving his mother pregnant and single and basically having to fend for herself. And also this was a huge deal. I didn't realize how big of a deal this was, specifically in Italy, specifically during World War II. The canoodling, if you will, between soldiers and barmaids and sex workers.
Oh yeah,
of this, there was deal. Laws put into place that you couldn't have sex with sex worker, or soldiers couldn't.
No, yeah. And if you were caught, for example, in France in particular, if you were a sex worker and you were caught having a Nazi client, you could get murdered in the street for it, and definitely shunned.
Right. Wasn't there I know that there was a couple famous undercover agents that worked or were sex workers to the Nazis.
It was Mata Hari was one.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What badass women. I could never imagine doing that.
Right, what a badass bitch.
That must be just heart palpitations 24/7. But yeah, Jack's mother, she lived a really, really rough life aside from, sex work and being lower class. Jack's mother was put in jail for fraud while she was pregnant with him. She was let out before she gave birth. She did end up going to Graz, Austria, to give birth to him. But then 3 years later, in 1953, Jack's mother was arrested again, so he was sent to Carinthia, to live with his maternal grandfather in this very small one-room cabin on the countryside in the middle of basically nowhere. Now, the conversation around the relationship between Jack and his grandfather tends to change from person to person, depending on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody in the family, if you're talking to his grandfather especially will tell you that that boy had a pretty decent life growing up, that he was not an alcoholic, that he wasn't abusive. And I hate to say that, but we we hear that from a lot of people who were.
Right.
You know, if you ask any member of my family, they would say the exact same thing. So, grain of salt. But also, I don't entirely trust Jack as far as I could throw him. So, Jack's point of view was that his grandfather was an alcoholic, a womanizer, a gambler, and a thief. And he tells a lot of stories about his grandfather. I didn't really want to go in depth about it, really any of them, because I don't know what he's making up and what is real. But I will say that one of them included him having to sleep in this one-room cabin in the only bed that's in the house next to his grandfather, while his grandfather entertained women, different women, every night.
Yeah,
that's
not good.
Fucked up.
It is.
That's fucked up. So if he is seeing this kind of thing, he's seeing it from not just his grandfather, but like he's also seeing this aspect in his mother. You know what I mean? Like, even though he was only around her for 3 years, he carries that with him. And I don't know. I just feel like the whole consistency of him growing up is just brewing and stewing under this hatred of women, predominantly sex workers.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. I really don't think that his grandfather had too many good words to say about women in general. He was apparently a very violent and angry person, someone you definitely didn't want to be on his bad side. He said that that his grandfather got him to start stealing animals from other farms, which I just think that's, I don't know. I guess of all things that you need to steal, I guess farm animals is one of them. And also started drinking at a very young age. Like, I'm thinking like 8, like below 10. His grandfather had him to start drinking. So he was kind of primed and ready for crime at a very young age. By 16, Jack had an extensive criminal record, including an arrest for an assault on a sex worker. He later wrote in a letter reflecting on his teenage years by saying, "I wielded my steel rod among the prostitutes and pimps of Hamburg, Munich, and Marseilles. I had enemies and I conquered them through inner hatred," end quote. In 1974, 18-year-old Jack gained the moniker the Vienna Strangler when he and his girlfriend at the time, Barbara Scholes, were out on a drive at night. They spotted her friend, an 18-year-old German girl named Margaret Schaefer. She was walking down the street. They pulled over and they started talking to her. Jack made it seem like they were going to give her a ride, but instead, Jack had his girlfriend wait in the car. Jack got out of the car to talk to Margaret, and he took Margaret to the nearby woods. He assaulted her. He then strangled her with her own bra strap, leaving her lifeless body propped up against the tree, exposed to the elements. Jack confessed to his girlfriend what he had done, who later couldn't take the guilt of not only her friend dying, but dying at the hands of her own boyfriend. And so she ended up going to the police. She told them everything. In 1976, he was sentenced to life in prison. He actually tried to justify his reasoning behind why he killed Margaret, saying that he saw his mother's face when he looked into her eyes, hoping to gain some sort of sympathy from the court for his mother abandoning him, but the court didn't buy it. An investigator for another case in 1974, the murder of a young woman named Marcia Horvath, he believed that Jack was likely a suspect of that murder. But since Jack was already convicted of murder and of a life sentence, the courts just weren't convinced to process this case. They didn't think that it was worth proceeding forward because they already had their guy. Like, why spend all the time and effort to prove it?
Right.
Which sucks. We do see this a lot in the American court system.
Sure do.
But it's really foul and disgusting behavior, in my opinion. But yeah, he still remained a suspect in that case, at least by that investigator's point of view. But yeah, it was very likely that he did it because of the similarities in the method of strangulation. Like, he always used the undergarments. Now, we don't know for sure if he committed any other murders prior to 1974.
I would say so, given how
he had already assaulted a sex worker at 16. And I don't know, to even be like charged with that at 16 means that he had to have done it prior.
Ahead of time. And I think for a first kill, that was awfully bold.
Absolutely.
So that's why I think he had some confidence under his
belt. Right. Especially since it wasn't even a very long conversation. Not a whole lot happened. He kind of just jumped out of the car, acted like a friend for 0.5 seconds and then killed her. You know what I mean? So this definitely had to have some sort of build up to it. But yeah, either way, the courts were like, well, he'll be locked up for good. He'll be in there forever. He'll never get out. Right? Yeah. Now, in prison, the uneducated and illiterate 18-year-old Jack now had opportunities that he had never had before. He had never gone to school, and now he had nothing but time and curiosity on his hands, so he delved into studies. And honestly, he really was intelligent. He taught himself how to read or write. He started studying everything that he could get his hands on, reading as much literature as possible. And he was a genius, but he was also manipulative, a very intelligent and manipulative person. He quickly learned how to, read, write, and figured out that writing was his true passion. From his cell, he became a local celebrity, writing children's stories for the radio, several plays, volumes of poetry and novels, including an autobiographical novel called Purgatory, published in 1982, which was later made into a film. Now, this book made a huge impact on his community. Huge impact. Now, granted, at the time, there is a huge rise in just intellectuals wanting to, I don't know, the whole vibe was like cafes, where you sit down at a cafe and you talk philosophy, you talk science, you talk about culture and sociology, and there was this huge push and movement to educate. They thought that education was the way to get people to stop being criminals.
Yeah,
they thought
it was a Reformation sort of
absolutely
action.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this book, honestly, now it was definitely his point of view as a victim. He victimized himself wholly. But in his book, he really centered himself around this very sad story, this story that, because of this terrible life that he lived, of course he was born into a life of crime, and of course he committed all these crimes because of all the things that had happened to him. And he moved people. I know it's kind of a bullshit story because you, at the end of the day, put your pants on and take your own pants off. It's you who walk in your shoes. It's him who was responsible for all of his crimes. But the way that he wrote it, the emotions that he portrayed, moved people. And this book was just highly favored. Now, because of the major impact, on the intellectual communities in Austria at the time, people thought that he had now been rehabilitated and re-socialized through this book. They used Jack Unterweger as an example of what a good prison system could do. With the right education, therapy, and opportunities, even the most ruthless killers can turn their lives around and become an upstanding member of society. He became the poster child for rehabilitation, the face for reformation. And because of this, Jack was released from prison in 1990 after only serving 15 years behind bars.
Yeah, no. Often, sadomasochistic serial killers are not fixable.
Yeah.
Girl, you can't fix him.
Yeah.
He needed to be in the jail.
Yeah. But he played everyone. He played everyone like a fucking fiddle. Like I said, he was an intellectual manipulator. Absolutely through and through. One commentator said, quote, "The Viennese cafe intellectuals who pulled him from prison and embraced him as their own, Jack Unterweger was proof positive that bad boys can become good men. He was their reclamation project, their social experiment, their civilized barbarian." They exalted this guy.
Yeah, I know they
They
did.
loved
It's
this man.
disgusting.
This man proved all of their theories correct. That's why they loved him. And honestly, he was handsome.
Here's part of it, is that deep down, like, a lot of these people want to admire him for getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Admired him for using his intellect to manipulate and charm. And I think they cared less about whether he would reoffend and more that they just admired that he aspired to move, like, that he got out of jail and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like with politicians, because I always am asking, like, how the hell could you vote for a child rapist? It's the same people who vote for him either have just an enormous, like, well of apathy that I will never understand, or they admire it.
Well, and I think there's something to be said about the way that he spoke, the way that he wrote.
Oh, yes, he's very charismatic.
You know, he's very eloquent with his speak. And I think that is something that is used quite a lot in a lot of different cultures, where if you speak a certain way, you will gain a certain amount of respect. You see a Southerner that talks like a banjo, you see some of us go up north and try to, you know, if we go as ourselves and we go into the most high class of places.
Yeah, let's go take it to the West Coast, California. Babies, I love you, but y'all treated me like shit when I was there because I sound like somebody threw a banjo down the stairs. But I am really smart.
Right.
But the twang makes people think we are fucking stupid. And you get treated like a complete dirtbag.
Right.
Or like you're mentally handicapped.
Right.
For sure.
And then vice versa, opposite. This man was being exalted, praised. And we see this quite a lot in society as well. People who are well-spoken seem to be believed as, you know, highly intelligent. Or
more honest.
Yes. Or exalted.
And I will tell you this right now, from experience. Just because somebody good at talking, you should probably trust them fucking less.
Actions. That's what you
gotta look at. Look at them actions. If the words and the actions align, we good, homie.
Yeah.
If the words and the action don't, you being fed some bullshit. Because ain't nobody better at feeding bullshit than somebody who's very eloquent and charming, adroit, all of that, and erudite, and all that fun stuff. A lot of guile.
Yeah. I will say it is kind of fun to watch, especially like English people rag on each other, because they're just like, they're so charming and they speak in cursive, but they're saying the meanest things, but you can't tell at all.
Oh, I can tell, and I love it.
I love it so much. It's so catty.
But whereas, you know, me and you would just be like, you're a dick.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And I prefer...
Girl, you better sit your ass down.
I tell Marissa all the time, put that eyebrow down.
Yep.
Because he cocks that eyebrow.
Yep. I have to tell my little one that because he does the same thing.
Put it down.
Put that eyebrow down. But yeah, his book Purgatory, so well written. I mean, I didn't read it, obviously. I don't want to. But this book was just praised, honored, and it was highly talked about right now. And critics were raving. One talk show said, quote, it was authentic, a real cry. Nobel Prize winning author Alfred Jelinek said that his autobiography had, quote, clarity and great literary quality. Magazine editor Alfred, I'm not going to say the last name because I don't know how, went to visit Jack in prison after reading Purgatory and said, quote, he was so tender, we decided to get him pardoned. This man wooed everyone. This man put the charm on everyone. It's insane. So when Jack got out of prison, his face was everywhere. He was on every magazine, every newspaper. He was very charming, very good looking. Like, I mean, honestly, he was handsome. He was a handsome ass man. He honestly looked like a TV show host or a news anchor, like from the 70s. I know this is 1990, but still, he definitely had a charm about him. He was definitely very stylish, very put together, very like pretty face. And I think that's another thing that I think our cultures really hinge on, is if somebody's well-spoken and very good-looking, oh yeah, we're going to believe everything they say. Yeah,
it's called pretty privilege.
It is. Now, because of all of this, he became world renowned for his writing pretty much overnight. He blew up. He became worldwide celebrity status for a second. And this enabled him to travel pretty much anywhere he wanted. Now, throughout 1990, he traveled around Europe speaking on talk shows and interviews, visiting high-end restaurants and nightclubs. Jack had a huge scene of followers and tons of fans everywhere, except the police. The police were not a huge fan of him. The police in various areas around Europe had their eye on Jack. A string of unsolved murders across Europe had his signature trademark. They were all sex workers. They were all restrained and then strangled with their own undergarments, dragged and left in the woods in a humiliating position. Jack would openly talk about how police were after him for these murders, mocking them for thinking that it was even him because clearly he's reformed. Like, even on talk shows, like, he would talk in interviews, he would go on talk shows, he would go to the public and like, even at nightclubs around like very, well-to-do people, he would just openly boast about how the cops think it's him and there's no way it could be him, and like, they have no proof, and tempting them, saying like, oh, you'll never be able to put me back in prison. Oh, they just want me behind bars because they just like me there. Like, they just have something out for me because I was in prison. They don't believe that I'm reformed. And yeah, this whole pattern of like taunting the police while simultaneously wooing the crowd seemed to work for Jack quite a bit. They didn't have any proof. They didn't have any evidence. There was no seminal fluid left at any of the crime scenes. So all they had to go on was suspicion because it was exact trademark of his previous murder. In 1991, he moved to Los Angeles to further his career in writing. There, he was commissioned by an Austrian magazine to write an article about the difference between Austrian and American crime and sex work, which, of course, he loved that topic. Now, in Austria, I believe that sex work was legalized like decades prior. It was several years prior that sex work was legal. And so I think that they kind of wanted a deeper look in how societies were ran now that, Austria had its time to really soak up the fact that, that was legal, and then, because if something's made legal, there's going to be societal repercussions from that. There's going to be,
every time.
It's going to be part of your culture then. He kind of wanted a play-by-play of what he thought it was like in America versus Austria. So he started writing these articles about it, doing research. He, from there, he ended up going to Hollywood. He would meet a lot of people. And honestly, he really liked the European American people that got famous in Hollywood. So he would actually just like walk up to their door and knock and be like, hello. And then just like try to talk to them. Which is so creepy, honestly.
The audacity.
Like, yeah, it's just so weird. But he really had a hot head. Like, he was really full of himself. He thought that he could just do that. He tried to do that with Zsa Gabor.
Zsa Zsa ain't having that shit.
Yeah. She was like, no. No. He tried to go to Austrian director Robert Dorhelm, like walk up to his door, try to start a conversation with him, trying to get him to produce a film based on his autobiography. But that didn't work out for him. But still, writing his writing and his story grabbed the attention of many locals in Hollywood, including the LAPD, who just months prior to his final arrest had taken him on several ride-alongs throughout the city.
Oh, that's smart. Let's
Isn't that
teach
creepy?
The serial killer how we work. So
Isn't
he can
that
get around
creepy?
Us. Yeah, it is.
That's fucking creepy. Like, they think that they're just buddies. Like, they're really like hamming it up. Like, they think they are friends.
Dumbass.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I get it. He was writing an article on the crime of LA. Who else to talk to for research than the LAPD themselves? But yeah, riding around in a cop car while simultaneously murdering people. Fucking disgusting. But yeah, he was so charismatic. Nobody, not even the LAPD, had any idea that he was actually out there murdering people. They had no clue. Pretty much as soon as he had landed in LA, he went right back to his old patterns to killing. His trademark knot was used with the clothing to, strangle the victim. And, he would always drag them from one spot into the woods, expose them, leave them. Like, he had his exact same routine every single time that it was just like a signature. And so they knew it was all the same person.
Obviously.
Now, his first assignment on crime and sex workers led him to the Cecil Hotel.
Yep, on Skid Row.
Right. And so there's not really that much information on, like, what exactly he did at the Cecil other than find sex workers, possibly murder them there. Other places he murdered them closer to the woods a lot of the time too. But the 4 that we know of that he killed in LA were sex workers Shannon Exley, age 35, Irene Rodriguez, age 33, and Peggy Jean Booth, also known as Sherry Ann Long, so 3, honestly, age 26. Now, he did sexually assault some of them, but when he did sexually assault them, he did not use his body.
No, he used instrumentation.
Tree branches.
Yeah.
Before strangling them with their own undergarments. Some of the investigators who had their suspicions on other cases before he went to prison got their confirmation when the details of the LA murders were released. So all those investigators in all those different places around Europe were just like waiting for more information to add to their cases to bring him to justice. And then they saw on the news the LA murders. And they're like, holy shit, it's him. So they had already been in contact with the FBI at this time because they're like, I know it's this guy. It's all the same signature. Well, then when that happens, they call up the LAPD and they're like, yo, we have to talk. Like, this is our guy. So yeah, the Justice Department got involved and told them of the new charges against Jack Unterweger in Austria, leading to charges against him in Hollywood Hills. Now, most of these European cases, no evidence was left behind other than the knot tying them all together. But luckily, the investigative team, they found that in the murder of Blanka Bokova in Prague in 1990, right after his release from prison, yielded some very crucial evidence. At the scene, Jack's car broke down, and he ended up selling it for parts. The investigators were able to track down this car at least a year or two later.
That's impressive.
They found it in a garage in Linz, gathered hairs from both Jack and Blanka in that car. We're finally able to have some solid evidence to tie him together. And I don't know if Jack had like some sort of tip. I don't know if maybe the fact that these cases were hitting the news, he thought it was time to dip, but he was gone. He was out of there. By the time the LAPD got word that Jack Unterweger might be a possible suspect, he was nowhere to be found. One of the magazines that had originally celebrated Jack for his rehabilitation actually played a key role in his capture. They devised this really brilliant plan, honestly. I would have never thought this.
This is really good.
Right? So they commission him for writing, right? They commission him for a $10,000 interview. The editor of the magazine informed police that the money exchange of where the money exchange location would be. And so when Jack went to go pick up his money, the
Cops
police were there.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up finding him in Miami Beach, Florida. So he had gone a long ways.
He went a whole other direction.
Mm-hmm. Their immigration caught up with him and detained him for entering the country on a tourist visa without disclosing felony convictions.
Yep.
So that was kind of like their
Loophole,
little hook.
you bitch.
Yes, which brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Because if they tried to get him on murder charges, he could just be like, no. You know?
Bye.
No, I didn't do it. But he can't say that he didn't do this. It's clear. So the LAPD was hoping to catch up with him in Miami, but the DNA results that they collected from the Cecil Hotel were not ready by this time. So because they didn't have those results in, he basically was extradited to Austria to be charged for the killings there before he would then be sent to California. But instead of sending him back and forth, because of all the press. Honestly, the press had a lot to do with their idea behind this. But because of the press coverage, because of his celebrity status, the courts actually decided to combine all of his crimes across multiple countries to try him for all of the murders all at once in Austria. Which I really commend them for.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We can't even get our police to talk across countries or counties, states, nothing, jurisdictions. So the fact that all these various different countries were able to speak to each other, collect really evidence, and try this man, and I'm sure they felt a big for letting him out.
I would hope so. They did a real
clearly a fucking understatement, but you know what I mean. Like, I feel like there was that added sense of like, oh, we really have to make sure we get this guy because it's our fault that all those women were murdered. I mean, I hope they had that kind of conviction because it is their fault.
It is.
Now, there was little to no coverage on this trial specifically because they didn't have like an English
I don't
presentation.
think they allowed cameras in the courtroom.
Yeah, and there was no like American coverage or anything in English.
And some European countries cover court cases way differently than we do, like with respect and dignity.
Yeah, it's not a spectacle. Daytime drama. Yeah. But yeah, essentially he was convicted and sentenced to another life term, which obviously wouldn't last long either. So his best murder, as it was put by one reporter, happened in prison on June 29th, 1994.
Yep, yummy.
And as an article in the Washington Post put it, quote, "The jailhouse bard who was so good with knots braided his shoelaces into a noose and hanged himself. He was 43. Mm-hmm. That was his best murder.
I think that
was his only appropriate murder. Word. I'm going to be honest.
Good job.
Sack of shit.
Sack of turds.
Sack of shit.
Piece of shit.
Just one of the worst overall human beings. And again, I'm sorry that I didn't have that much information on the victims. I know I really like to highlight victims in these cases, but we just didn't have the information because of their line of work and because of the times.
We talk more openly about sex work now. You didn't back then.
No, absolutely
not. In fact,
not.
if you said, oh, well, she was a prostitute, then people went, oh, okay, and then literally shut down, didn't listen, and didn't care.
Most of the time, there wouldn't even be cases open for them. No. Most of the time...
Or their names wouldn't be released to the press because literally nobody gave a shit.
Exactly. And I will say another apology because I'm not very good at the names for... like in the Northern Europe area, whatever that's called. The Slavics. I love the sound of Slavic language. So I really didn't want to butcher all of their beautiful names. But there were names for the victims in Europe, but they were so difficult for me to say. I just didn't want to disrespect them in that way. But
we'll include their names.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll try to remember.
Absolutely. But there was not any information other than they were mostly murdered where they were picked up and then drug about 10 to 15 feet away in the brush. Yeah. Every single one of them was taken the same. So didn't want to rehash that.
You did all right. It's okay.
Yeah, girl. I hated this man. I didn't really like talking about him.
And I'm going to rush through business time because I'm so hot. I'm about to throw up.
Yeah.
So we have a Patreon. You should join it. It's like, at this point, over 600 hours of content for you to enjoy.
Probably.
So it's a really good value. In addition, please join our Discord. Why? It's fun, and I told you to, and you should do what I say.
And we try to be there as
I'm
much as
there
possible.
every day.
By we, I mean me. I try. I usually come in anytime I see like a funny meme. I'm like, oh, my friends have to see this. And
yeah, you want Willow to come in and just throw down your memes.
Yeah, I'm just there for the memes. I'm in disassociation mode, and so that's what we're doing today, kids.
It's not good.
Yeah.
And anyway, also, if you would be like, oh, I enjoyed this, you may praise us in the form of money sent to our coffee account.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Buy us a coffee.
We'd really like that.
A frozen one, because it's hot as balls.
Nice, sweet treat.
I haven't had like a fancy coffee.
I have not in a long time.
I think like months,
Yeah.
honestly. Oh, not
I
maybe
like
2
it.
months.
I like it with extra caramel. I tell whoever's making my drink to literally kill me with the caramel. I need the caramel drizzle, girl.
Oh, I like more of the coffee. Anyway, hey, if you're on YouTube, hit like, subscribe,
Please.
and comment. Even
Yeah.
if it's like Lillian, go to hell. I'll just delete it, but you're helping the algorithm.
Hell yeah.
Thanks. Also, if you want to continue to send me death threats in the emails, know that I do report every one of those to the Department of Homeland Security, but knock yourself out, bitch.
Yeah, whoever is listening out here
I
and
just
that angry,
I just look, they're coping.
you
and
can
seething.
skip it.
You can.
You don't have to listen if you're that angry.
I put a warning. I said, this is political, and if you don't like it, lick my butthole and leave, or just leave.
I'm just shocked and appalled that my best friend has had these things said to her, and I know you don't tell me about every single one of them.
Oh, no.
You rarely tell me about them in general.
I don't care.
But the fact that people had to go out of their way to type out an email about how much they wanted to unalive you,
and then assault my dead body.
That's a lot. That's a bit much.
That's a lot.
Just change the episode. Click out.
Or you can hate listen all you like and give me all those yummy numbers that give me money.
I guess so.
And you can email me and waste your time and then get in trouble when the G-men show up to your house with their little curly cute earpieces.
Oh, wrong song. Sorry.
Was that Inspector Gadget?
Yep, that sure was.
Go, Gadget, go. Do.
So
Go, Gadget, go.
What's the Men in Black? Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. The Men in Black.
Here come the Men in Black. I can't sing today. My voice is all fucked up. Anyway, hey,
y'all
I'll make
are
it weird.
awesome.
If all you can do to support this podcast is listen, thanks. I love you. I'm going to go now. Bye.
Bye.
Us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/cruelty has all of the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Willie B.